Alright, this is a Jupiter-8, and what I'm doing right now is cleaning out the slide pots. Dirt and junk can fall into here, it can get oxidized, and then you have kind of bad connections, and we are going to clean out some slide pots. Also, what some people use is Deoxit, which is what I'm also going to use, but I'm going to go the full 9 yards and disassemble it and put feeder grease on here. This is kind of expensive. I think it's like, $20 or $30 or something, but it gives you so much grease, you're not going to go through it unless you do like a few consoles or something. The grease gives it that gooey feeling like you have when it was factory, so you can see how this has a little tension to it. If you just use Deoxit, it will clean the grease out and it can feel kind of metal and raw. So let's do it. I have already desoldered a couple of these connections in preparation, but there's a few more to do. So there's tons of videos on how to desolder stuff online, so I'm going to skip that. But I am going to desolder these connections here. Got that one. There's 4 on the corners here. There's that. And if you can tell already, if you don't have one of these tools and you're doing repairs like this, you really need one. An inexpensive desoldering sucker like this is going to run you anywhere from like $100 to $200, and it makes repairs like this way easier. Oh, come on. Gotta get that last one. Be convincing. There we go. Alright. And where if you use hand tools or no tools at all, it's a pain in the butt to get out. With the desoldering station, it just comes right out. So we have 6 tabs here, and it's the only thing holding the slide pot together. So what we're going to do is take this pricker, and don't put your finger here, keep it out of the way in case you slip, and bend these tabs out just a little bit. We're going to come back afterward and take some pliers to bend these straight out. So here's that. That I would have stabbed my finger there. I'm sure this isn't like the OSHA approved way of doing this, but maybe I shouldn't condone that either. But anyway, so now they're kind of at an angle, and you can grab these with pliers. These pliers have no teeth. They're just straight flat. I got them at a jeweler's store. It's good for these because you don't need to nick things up when it's not necessary. Alright, and then one more. And we're ready to take it apart. So here's the inside. As you can see, or maybe not because who knows about the film, it's got junk inside of it. You can see the like dust and other stuff. And then sometimes if it gets really bad on this bit here, which is called the wiper, the contacts can have some junk on them too. So all in all, like it, you know, the little bits of dust and stuff make it lift from the faders, and you get crackly sounds or weird values happening all the time. So we're going to clean those up. I'm going to use that fader lube that I had mentioned before, and we're going to spray just a little bit on a toothbrush. Just a little bit. This can is really intense. Like, it will spray quickly, so you have to have some kind of finesse. Also notice the microfiber cloth on the Jupiter is probably a good idea to avoid getting this cleaner on the keys. For these wipers, you only want to clean it the direction of the spring. Clean it this way and you're going to bend the tabs. We want to avoid that. So clean this out real good. Really, really, really good. And let's clean the sides. So you don't want any grit or anything. And keep in mind, we still want to go that direction. We go this way on the sides, we can bend the spring. So we get the sides, kind of get everything. We want to avoid having dirt inside of the slide potentiometer, because that can, not only can it cause connection issues, but it makes it feel kind of junky. And speaking of feeling junky, a lot of the dirt collects inside of the slide pot. So we're going to clean this out with a Q-tip. We're going to really scrub this. We're going to use that Deoxit F5 that I was just using for the other stuff because it also has a cleaner in it. And The dirt likes to collect on the sides because they get pushed there by the wiper. It doesn't have to be perfect because the wiper isn't going to get all the way into the corners, but if you can clean it out, it's good insurance. So clean, clean, clean. All right, that's looking pretty good. And we don't want to have any deoxit in here for the grease, which is going to be next. Reason being, deoxit is a cleaner too, and we want it to be gone, so when we apply the grease, it's going to stay and not immediately get cleaned off. So this is good. It looks clean. You saw me use a toothbrush on this guy. We also want to clean this off. So inspect it. If you see any specks of dirt or dust or anything, now's the time to go over a second time. And this has been soaking with a little deoxit, so we're going to wipe this off. And same deal, watch for grease here. This is the back side. Just kind of clean that off while you're there. And when you put it down, leave the contacts up so it doesn't pick up any new grease on this microfiber cloth. So now we'll take a small screwdriver, or whatever works well, and liberally apply this stuff to the corners of the fader. You can see I got quite a bit here. And we're going to do that about equally on both sides. Here's the other side. Let's get a little more. If you put too much into it, it'll just kind of goo over. And that's good. If we're in excess, that's fine. We'll just clean it up after. So if you lost which direction this goes, it probably doesn't matter, but from factory, this hole in the slider chassis and this hole in the wiper right here, they kind of go together. So put this in here and then gently kind of make it fall in, and we're going to move this back and forth while we pull the wiper like that to spread the fader grease. And feel it right now for dirt and grime. If you feel something, go ahead and clean it up. You can use the deoxit again if you would like, because that's what it's going to be like. If you, have dirt in there, well, you have dirt in there. So now we're going to close this up. A mistake would be to use pliers like this, because the little friction point, which now has a grease on it, is going against the top of the fader. So using pliers like this might bend the chassis, and then you'll have inconsistent feel on the top. So we're going to go over here. I happen to have something that is pretty convenient. It's just a piece of metal. You can use the corner of a table or something. And what we're going to do now is take those tabs and bend them back. Put it at an angle here, just so that the weak point is on the corner of the tab. And then push this flat, but don't put too much pressure on it. It doesn't have to be jammed on there. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat. And in fact, if you do push it too much, then the resistive strip is going to be kind of jammed inside the potentiometer, and the feel will be inconsistent again. Yeah, so we want to try to make this consistent. There we go, and then we have one more. Notice all that fader grease is just gooing everywhere. So now it's all cleaned up, and we have the fader grease in there just like it was factory. Sounds good. So what we're gonna do is take that paper towel that we were working with before and just kind of clean up the excess. It's okay if it kind of goes out a little bit, but I like to keep things tidy. And if you have any of that deoxit on the bottom, clean it off. Just kind of do its thing. And as you slide it back and forth, excess grease is probably going to come off the front. That's fine. Clean that up there too. And inspect the tabs. Does it look flat? I think this looks pretty good. Might go over this one super quick here. 1, 2. And then this goes back on the board. I have a soldering iron that I use that I like to keep kind of hot. Having a hot temperature is good for soldering to things like these tabs, because this entire chassis is going to work like a heat sink. So it's really not an ideal condition to solder. So getting it hot kind of gives you that cutting edge. So if you use that desoldering station, the way it came off is probably pretty clean, and it's gonna want to fall off as you're soldering it on there. So my trick here is to hold it between your hands and then also hold a little bit of solder here. And then at 470 degrees Celsius, just kind of move your thumb up to feed solder onto that pad. Just like that. And you got one, wait for it to cool, come back down here and do the same thing on the other corner of this one. I'm using the contacts, like the little pins, because it solders quicker. You can use the chassis bits, but it's just harder that way. So then we go through and solder this up. Also, these contacts are going to experience a lot of whatchamacallit, like people are going to have their hands on it and they're going to be pushing it up and down and stuff. Tension, I guess so. That's the word I'm trying to get at. So we want to make sure that this is soldered well. From the factory, you know, there would be a moderate amount of solder. Be totally okay adding a lot of solder to it, just so that, you know, you don't have cracks and stuff as you use it. And that's how you do it. From here, nice and smooth. And no more crackles, no more jumped values. It's perfect. Here's the very last one I'm going to do. It's a little junky. Here's a nice one. Here's a nice one. There you go. That's how you clean a Jupiter-8 slide pot.